6 months ago, I tried running 1 mile and it was so hard. And just recently, I ran a half marathon in 2 hours. I'm gonna share with you everything I did these past 6 months, going from barely being able to run 1 mile to running 13.1 miles in 2 hours. Six months ago, I decided I wanted to do a half marathon, but I have never ran before in my life. And I didn't want to just do a half marathon. I think just completing a half marathon is phenomenal, great, but I was like, girl, you are gonna do it well, and you're gonna do it fast. So the first step I took was I was like, I'm just gonna run for 1 mile, see if I could even run for 1 mile without having to stop. It took me like 12 minutes. It was insanely hard. I struggled throughout pretty much the entire mile. I wanted to quit. I was sweating, I was huffing and puffing, I couldn't catch my breath. It was so hard. So if that's where you're starting from, I was there, right there with you, I promise, and it gets easier. I was so proud of myself, even though that sounds so silly, but I ran 1 mile without stopping. So from there, I had to gradually increase my running abilities because they were obviously not good. Obviously needed a lot of help with running. So what I did is I ran by time-based running rather than by mileage, because when you're running by mileage, you know, it is a big difference between running 1 mile to running 2 miles. That was like a difference of running for 12 minutes versus running for 24 minutes, like that. That's a really big increase. So I started off by doing time-based running. So after I ran my first mile in 12 minutes, maybe the next day or the day after, I ran for 15 minutes. And then I continued running just for 15 minutes. And then I would increase it to 18 minutes. And then I would increase it to 20 minutes. And then I would increase it to 25 minutes. And I would just slowly increase my time that I was running rather than by mileage. I think that alone helps so much because in the beginning, your body doesn't know how to run. And you need to slowly build up that running endurance. And your body has to like get used to actually running because it's never done this before. So slowly increasing how long I was pushing my body to run really helped. If you're also just starting your running journey, this is so important, but in the beginning, truly, like the first few weeks, first 2 to 3 months, just run and don't focus on anything else. If you're entering into the running world, you're probably hearing so much about zone 2 runs and all of these different types of runnings that you should be doing. And when you're just starting out, don't listen to anything. You're not there yet. Don't concern yourself with any of that. In the first few weeks, you are just adapting your body to running. I wouldn't even follow a plan. I wouldn't do anything for the first few weeks. Literally just go out there and run and just accommodate your body to running. I truly did that for the first 3 months of running. I had no game plan other than simply slowly increasing my time of running. But like there truly wasn't any game plan. I would go out there and run for 20 minutes. Maybe sometimes I would run for 25 minutes. Maybe sometimes I would run for 15 minutes. But it's far more about being consistent with your running in the beginning than worrying about all of these different heart rate zones and all of the different things. Like, don't worry about any of it. Just go out there and run. That alone is probably the best advice I could ever give anyone, because in the beginning, it is so hard. And it is going to feel hard for a little while until your bodies can start to adapt to running. It is so new to your body that it just needs time to figure it out, and it will figure it out. You just have to be consistent. It is far better to run these short 15 to 20 minute runs like 3 or 4 times a week. That is far better than just trying to run once a week for like 30 minutes. The short, small runs will add up and your body will slowly adapt, and it will be worth it. So truly, for the first 3 months, I was just running, no game plan, just adapting my body, slowly increasing how long I could run for. Once I kind of accommodated my body to running, and I got to the point where I was like, this isn't that bad. Once you reach to that point, I decided to do a lactate threshold test, which I'm not even going to pretend I know the ins and outs of that, because I don't. But that was what was recommended to me. And essentially, you either wear a watch or a heart rate monitor, and you're going to go out there and you're going to run as hard as you can for 30 minutes.
I'm having high doubts of a sub 2. I don't know if that's even possible. I think I could do a half marathon. I don't think I could do it in sub 2, but we're gonna try. Guess we got 20 weeks.
And essentially, you're just going to take that data and plug it in somewhere. You could literally use ChatGPT. I'm sure you could use Strava. I'm sure you can use, it's called like trainingpeaks.com. That one's popular. But you could, it's free, and you could just plug in your heart rate data for those 30 minutes. And that's going to give you your specific zones for running and where your heart rate should be if you are trying to do specific zone runnings and your different paces. Because here's the thing, everyone is different. So that test just kind of helped me figure out where I was at with running, what my body could handle with running. It just provided a lot of useful information. It was also just like a good test to see how much my pace increased just in 3 months of running with no game plan. That alone, my pace dropped significantly. And it's just crazy to look back on right now, because running at that pace for 30 minutes, I did give that my all, and that was so hard. And guess what? I ran faster than that for my half marathon just a few months later. So that's crazy. Anyway, so once I did that little lactate threshold test, I was like, all right, now we're 3 months away from the half marathon. It is time to actually start formulating a plan. Now that my body is accommodated to running and I have my heart rate information and my pace information and I kind of know where I'm at with running, now it's time to lock in with a plan. And I'm going to say plan loosely because I didn't follow anything specific. I know you could obviously purchase running plans on Runna. That's super, super popular, and I'm sure that's great, but I did this all on my own. Well, I shouldn't say all on my own. My husband is like an endurance athlete, so he kind of helped coach me along with this. So I'm going to provide this information out for free because it significantly helped me a lot. So during the week, I wanted to run at least 4 times, sometimes 5, but I wanted to make sure I was running pretty consistently. So I would try to run 4 times during the week, and these were all specific types of runs. So one run was an interval run, and I think interval running is what single-handedly dropped my pace significantly, because here's the thing, if you want to run fast, you have to practice running fast. So I would do 30-minute interval runs, and essentially, honestly, I used like the Peloton app because they have like interval run classes, but you could like literally look them up online, but that's what I would stick to, just quick 30-minute interval classes. They were hard. Thing, if you want your body to learn to go fast and adapt to going very fast and pushing your body to like that type of limit, you have to practice it. There's honestly just like no way around it. If you want to get faster, that is key. And I only did it once a week. Another run that I did was a long run. At this point, like the first 3 months, I think the longest I've ever worked up to was about like running for 45 minutes straight. So that's really all I had under my belt. So I needed to obviously increase that significantly before my half marathon. So when I had a long run during the week, this is again where we're increasing it gradually by time and not mileage. I just think that that mindset works so much better. So on my long run days, you know, it would be like run for 1 hour. And then maybe the next week it would be run for an hour and 10 minutes. And then the next week run for an hour and 15 minutes, like gradually increasing it by time. And before you know it, you're gonna have ran for 2 hours. The other 2 types of runs, so those were the first 2 types of runs. I had 2 more runs to get to 4 runs for the week. My last 2 types of runs were zone 2 runs. And I know, again, this, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions on zone 2 running. I don't really think anyone cares, but I did do it. I think zone 2 running is far more important if you are someone who's full on marathon training, or you are someone who is averaging like 20 miles plus a week, like you're running a lot. Then I totally think doing majority of your runs in zone 2 for those specific groups of people is extremely important, because it gives your body a chance to recover and you're not taxing it too much. However, I didn't think most of my runs needed to be zone 2, and neither did my coach, my husband. Just because the amount of miles I'm putting in on a week is only like 12 to 15. Sometimes when I was getting closer to the half marathon, 18, but it really wasn't in the grand scheme of things. That's not a whole ton of miles. So like when I am doing my runs, I need to make them count. Obviously, I still did do 2 zone 2 runs, slower runs during the week, but yeah, that's just like from what I understand. I don't know. I still did them. I do think they have a time and a place. I think something that's really helpful when you're doing your zone 2 runs, because it's actually hard to run slow. Like, people don't talk about it. It's actually really, it's kind of challenging, because then your form's off, your cadence is off, like everything, it's tough. Something that helps is honestly running in silence or listening to a podcast. I think sometimes when I listen to music, it amps me up and then I'm going too fast. I also wasn't super honed in on my heart rate. You know, like if my heart rate went like a little bit above what my zone 2 was considered based on my lactate threshold test, like I wasn't super worried about it. I was just making sure that when I was doing these zone 2 runs, that it was truly conversational. Like I could talk, which is why I think sometimes listening to a podcast helped, because I felt like I could talk back. I didn't end the run ever feeling like, ugh, like that I'm tired. Like every time I ended it, I was kind of just like, I feel like I didn't do enough today. And I think that's the point that you're trying to go for. And I'm going to be honest, I really wasn't perfect at the zone 2 running. I would give it my best, but if, you know, I creeped into zone 3 or would it so be, it's okay. It wasn't the end of the world. I didn't take it so seriously. And then sometimes I would do a 5th run during the week, but if I did a 5th run, it would just be for fun. Like there was no plan. I just went out there and ran. I didn't really care heart rate zone, just making it fun. Sometimes I feel like plans sometimes overcomplicate it, and nothing against following a plan. I think that helps some people really well so that they know exactly what to do. But mine was like a plan that I loosely followed. Like it wasn't anything too serious. I kind of picked whatever days I wanted to do them. And like that's something that I needed just because I'm a busy working mom. Like I had a lot going on and that's like kind of what worked for my lifestyle. But if having like specific running plans works for you, I think Nike also has specific running plans besides Rana. Honestly, you could also probably just ask ChatGPT to make you a specific running plan, but it really depends on what's going to actually keep you consistent with running. I wanted to talk about injury prevention because so many runners near me are always hurt, and I was like, what is wrong with runners? That their hips, their knees, something's always wrong with them. And I didn't want to be injured, especially like I'm 31 years old, I work, I've got 3 kids, I can't be down, I can't be injured. What I did is at least once a week, I made sure I did a strength class. Now, I'm gonna be honest. In this 6 months, I made sure I did a strength class at least for the first 3 months, 4 months, and then I kind of died off, okay? I should have done better, learn from me. But it was fine. But in the beginning, I really made sure I tried to do like a strength dumbbells once a week, and specifically I tried to do single-legged exercises just because when you're running, you're on one leg, so you want to make sure your legs are strong. So if I was doing like deadlifts, it'd be single leg deadlifts or anything of that nature. Even calf raises are good. The thing I also tried to do is, because when you're running, you're always straight, always going straight on. So when I would do exercises, I would try to make sure I was bending to the sides. You want to make sure your body can move in all different ways. Something that I was way more on top of was doing a Pilates class at least once a week, and like not going anywhere. You can literally YouTube Pilates classes, like Pilates by Izzy on YouTube. Phenomenal, free, incredibly difficult. I also use just like the Peloton app, but I tried to make sure I did a Pilates class once a week because I feel like a lot of those movements reminded me of things that my pelvic floor physical therapist made me do, which was really good. But I feel like the Pilates itself is just so good for your core, especially if you are a lady. Like protecting your pelvic floor is so important. So I feel like Pilates alone helps with that, and also it really helps with like small stabilizer muscles like in your hips and your glutes. I feel like when I started, I had the weakest hips and glutes. Like I was like, am I pathetic? But the Pilates classes, even though they're just body weight, but they are so hard, and I think it really fine tunes those little tiny stabilizer muscles that really help and go a long way with injury prevention in running. Something that is super important during training is your fueling, and this has to be talked about far, far more. This is honestly so much more important than people think. So during training, we are going to figure out our fueling situation, because when you're running, you are just burning so many calories, so much energy. Your body needs essentially so many carbs and sugar to help you sustain, keep going with these longer distances. So we need to practice fueling, which means we need to practice ingesting something while we're running in order for our bodies to keep going. Because here's the thing, so many people forget about fueling during their training, and then what happens is they get to their half marathon or whatever it may be, a longer distance, and they bonk, which essentially means you get to like mile 10 and your body's just like shutting down. It's like, nope. And you could see their pace, it plummets, and like they're just down for the count. They're having a really hard time continuing going on, and we don't want that to happen to you. So we're gonna figure out our fueling so that that doesn't happen. I personally liked the gels. However, you don't have to do gels, because I know a lot of people don't like them. Here's the thing that you need to know about gels. There's a bunch of different kinds. I personally like the goo lemon ones. However, gels come in a lot of different companies make them. Some have caffeine in them, some have tons of different flavors. So many different ones you could try and test out. The thing is, sometimes they hurt people's stomachs. So if you're going to test them out, maybe do it on a treadmill so you can be close to the bathroom, because you never know what's going to happen. But so many different brands. You got to figure out which one works for your stomach if you are going to choose a gel. The texture is not great, and it's kind of something you need to get used to, because if your first time ingesting a gel is during your half marathon, you might vomit on the spot. It might not be good, and you might be gagging for life. So that's something to know about gels. You kind of have to get used to them, because it is kind of like eating a giant booger, unfortunately. And here's the thing, if you don't want to do gels, you certainly don't have to. Honestly, do candy. I think that's a really good option. The thing that you have to keep in mind is though, like, you have to store this in your pockets and everything while you're running, which is why people lean towards gels, because it's very small, very easy to rip open and put in your mouth. You could totally do candy though, and just figure out like how many pieces of candy you have to eat. I think people do like Sour Patch watermelon, Skittles, anything like that. You just want to make sure you're taking in enough carbs, and you also want to figure out when to take them. I think there's like a standard ratio or something, I don't even know, but I took one like every 25 to 30 minutes, and that was really helpful. It's really important to like take it before your body starts dying on you. It's really about taking it so that you can keep sustaining your energy. Also want to figure out electrolytes. There again, so many different electrolyte brands. Some electrolytes have more like sodium than others, and like they're all different. So figuring out which ones you like, which ones you like the taste of. And also I'm gonna share, I'm probably an oddball out, but as soon as I started running, like I would get a few minutes into my run, I would immediately start cramping. And if you have that problem too, mine was like an electrolyte problem. I have figured out I had to take like a whole thing of electrolytes in right before my run, and then I won't cramp anymore. But yeah, like figuring out if you are experiencing any type of cramping, it's because you need electrolytes. Remember one time my husband, during one of his Ironmans, he got to the run portion and he was cramping really bad and walking, and one of the pros who was also doing the Ironman came over to him and he was like, hey, grabbed and gave him like electrolytes, and it literally cured him. He was like fine and good to go. So wanted to throw that out there. During the half marathon, I always just ran with my water had electrolytes in it, because I knew at some point I was probably going to need that. And then I would just get plain water from like the stations if I just needed plain water. But again, this is what training is for, figuring out what your electrolytes that you need are and what nutrition you're going to take in. This video is getting way too long. I think we're going to have to do another video on just like running products like vests and running belts and shoes and what to wear. So we're going to wrap it up here. That is literally everything I did in the past 6 months, going from struggling to run 1 mile to a half marathon in 2 hours. And you know what? My chip time is 2 hours and 1 minute. My Strava time is 2 hours. So I guess technically 2 hours and 1 minute, right? Because you have to go by your chip time. We're going to call it 2 hours, because if you made it this far, you probably don't care. You know, you can follow me on Strava, because it's actually cool to watch people do it in real time, because I'm currently going to be training for a full marathon, and you can see how I'm going about that if you want. Wish me luck. Anyways, see you in the next one. Bye.